In a relationship, when is honesty not the best policy? How do you balance what you want versus what you need? And is there something you need to say to your spouse but can't find the right way to say it? If so, then you're in the right place. This is the Lunch with Sandy podcast. With nearly 20 years of marriage under their belts, Terrance and Sandy Jackson discuss a range of topics, provide valuable insights on relationships, and talk about the conversations married couples need to have. So what does lunch have to do with all of this? Well, it's a metaphor for how these conversations originally started. Speaking of conversations, let's get one going. Here's your hosts, Terrance and Sandy.
Welcome to another episode of the Lunch with Sandy podcast, where we have the conversations that married couples need to have, while at the same time discussing a number of different topics. I'm Terrance.
And I'm Sandy.
And today we're going back to a conversation that we've been playing over and over again, and it has to do with a four-letter word. But not that four-letter word that Sandy's thinking about. And with that, let's get to what you're all waiting for. And that is, how is Sandy doing today?
Today is a sad day, so that's how I'm doing today.
Well, even when it's sad, you got to raise your spirits because we got some stuff to get into, and we can't sit here.
And I have brownies in the oven.
See how you...
That'll make me feel better.
That was a quick switch from sad to brownies. I like how your brain switches so quick from one thing to, ooh, brownies in the oven. I'm going to be cheered up by some brownies.
Well, it's essentially chocolate, so that pretty much...
Is that all it takes? Now, let me ask you this.
Probably.
Maybe that spider was hanging from your face because you had chocolate on it.
I did not have chocolate on
I'm
my
just
face.
saying.
But that was weird to just... Because every single time I looked down, I would see something out of the corner of my eye. But when I looked up, it was fine. So, and then to notice it was a spider, that was a little odd, a little freaky.
It sounds like you need to start another podcast. It's called Hanging with the Arachnids. It can be about you and all the spiders that you're running around with.
I don't normally care for spiders. However, I've been trying to be a good person and
I killed one the other day with your shoe on the other side in the gym.
What? Don't kill him with my shoe. Use your own shoe. I've been letting them go outside.
Yeah, well, listen, I wasn't picking him up. He was just sitting over there hanging out. So I was like,
although I probably killed a few too the other day, sweeping up the gym.
Yeah, I said, you don't belong
There's
here.
a lot of them. Well, not a lot, but there's a couple of them.
They do hang out down here.
Yeah, I don't know why they specifically like the gym too.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm mostly the one that uses it.
Maybe because you like hanging out with the arachnids, which should be the name of your next podcast. Anyway.
They got teeth. I like that.
Let's get to the spotlight of the week. And the spotlight of the week this week is not on a person, but on a thing.
I almost
that
did
thing. What?
3.5 pull-ups.
Oh, listen, hold on, wait. Let's take a step back.
No,
we're going to take a step back because this, we have a conversation and we discuss a range of different topics. And a couple episodes ago, Sandy was talking about how she had crushed the Guinness World Book of Records with the 3 pull-ups that she did in preparation for next year's Rugged Maniac.
And so this morning, any record, but
so this morning she comes down here and she says, I'm going in. I'm going to do 3 pull-ups. And so,
well, the goal was to try to do 4.
Yes, the goal was to try to do 4. And so I said, all right, well, let me come over here and watch. And I go over there and I watched her, and I'm looking at her, and she did 3 ups. Now, you might be asking, what are 3 ups? She didn't do a full pull-up. From a standing position, now you got to keep this in mind, the pull-up bar is low. So actually to get the full effect, you got to hang from the bar, bend your knees. But from the standing position, she was able to pull herself up 3 times. And that's why I said...
That's not true. Yes, I did I started in a standing position, but I didn't jump off the floor.
I didn't say you jumped off the floor.
I know. I'm trying to be descriptive.
Describe your ups.
Right. But then on the second one, I came down, not to where my knees were on the floor like you were, but I came down further than where I started.
You did come down further where you started,
Yeah.
but you didn't go all the way down.
The bar was still over my head, so technically it is a pull up.
It's an up. Anyway.
So it went from the bar being over my head to being under my chin.
So
that is still a pull up.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to film this. We're going to film this, and we're going to let the people be the judge on whether or not it was a pull up or an up.
Was this a pull up?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, it wasn't a pull up. It was an up. But listen, I give her credit for what she actually did. I just want to clarify.
Really? Because I don't.
No, I told you. Listen,
I'm trying to.
Did I not?
I don't recall hearing the credit.
Did I not demonstrate? I said, listen. I said that's an up, and I demonstrated what a pull up was, and I told you which parts of your muscles you were working and which parts you weren't because you didn't go all the way down. Did I not do that? Yes, I did.
You could have started with "Good job, babe." But
good job on those up, babes. Anyway, we're going to get to the spotlight of the week. And the spotlight of the week is actual opportunity. And you can take that in a number of different ways. When I say opportunity, what I mean is sometimes you have the opportunity to do things you haven't done in a very long time. Sometimes you get the opportunity to do things that you haven't done at all. But when that opportunity presents itself to you, be sure to take advantage of it. I had the opportunity to hang out with some friends who I haven't hung out with in probably about 15 years, and it was a good old time. So that's the spotlight of the week. Now,
hanging out with friends.
Well, ones that you haven't seen in a long time. You know what I mean? Ones you haven't seen in a long time. Now, back to this conversation. And I know what you're thinking. How many times are we going to have a conversation about that 4-letter word, love? Mm-hmm. Many.
Oh, that 4-letter word.
Yeah, see, I told you it wasn't the 4-letter word you were thinking about. You know, there are so many different topics that you can actually have about the word love or the concept of love. Mm-hmm. But today, I want to look at that word from two spectrums. And I'm going to try to keep it purely from the romantic perspective.
Okay.
And when I say these two words, you're going to know what I'm talking about. I want to view or compare the concept of true love versus unconditional love.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Now, before we get into it, I think it may be necessary to define what those two are. But first, I don't know why I said but first like that.
I don't know either. Enlighten me. Let me know when you figure it out.
I do think that when you talk about love through the lens of romance, it has the ability to transition from one or many variations to others. And I say that because, you know, when you talk about true love or you hear people talk about true love, typically they're talking in a very romantical. Romantical. I made that one up. Typically they're talking about it from the romantic perspective. You know, with a lot of excitement and emotion and all those things. And when they talk about unconditional love, typically they're talking about, you know, more along the lines of family, kids, and things like that.
Yeah.
But there is an intersection of those two, and we're going to get into that. So when you first fell in love with me, I know all the feelings that you had. No. When you first fall in love, right, and you're in the throes of that deep love, that could be classified as true love.
I would just say that's
more
again physical.
I'm going to define it in a second.
Than anything in the beginning.
Well, you know that. Well, let's reclassify it. Romantic love.
Okay, that's better.
Okay. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings that are in there. And those feelings and that emotion is a major factor or a major contributing factor to that concept of love that you're actually experiencing. But over time, as you spend more time with that individual, as you learn more about them, and that romantic love, in many cases, can transition to, will you give me the word in a minute, can transition to true love. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Can also go the opposite, but yeah.
I mean, again, always the one to go to the dark side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so my initial thoughts while you're going through that is right. So unconditional love, I feel like most people can equate it to like a parent-child relationship, right? But then again, some parent-children don't really have that relationship either. But I would say that that's the closest thing that comes to like immediate unconditional love. But romantic love, I came up with another term for it. And I'm thinking puppy love.
Puppy love.
Well, because I'm thinking about, when Jax puts his head on my knees because he wants something and he gives me those puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the initial phases you can classify it as puppy love. Although once you hit a certain age, I don't know if you use that term.
No,
puppy love anymore.
I would not, but doggy love. I don't know.
Doggy love. Oh goodness. All right, let's talk about how we would distinguish one from the other. And I'm going to look at it from the perspective of trying to define true love and then what unconditional love is. And again, I'm going to try to keep this through the lens of the romantic perspective, right? So when you truly love somebody, you want the best for them. You want them to be happy. You want them to be successful, and you want to be there for them as much as possible. But there is a key factor that differs between the two. True love, you want all those things for them as long as they deserve it. Right?
Yeah.
Unconditional love, I would say, is exactly the same thing, with the exception, it doesn't make a difference whether or not they deserve it. You want that stuff for them regardless. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the concept of true love and unconditional love, one of those is a feeling.
Okay.
But the other is really a behavior. And that becomes a point of discontent for a lot of people. And I'll tell you why. When you're in love with someone and you've been with someone for a very, very long time, we had conversations about how as a couple and as a relationship, things grow. Mm-hmm. It is unrealistic to say that you feel the same way every day. I'm not, and why are you laughing? I'm not, just follow me for a second. It's unrealistic to say you feel the same way every day, right?
Yeah.
So there are going to be some days where, you're going to really, really like some people. And there's going to be some days where you really, really do not like some people. Right? But that's based on feelings. Mm-hmm. Love is exactly the same way. When you love someone unconditionally, regardless of how you're feeling on that day, you treat them like you treat them every day based on the love that you have for them. Right.
So in reverse, then.
Why do you listen? Why do you always got to go in reverse? What is it with you that you always got to go in reverse?
I don't know.
Go ahead. Give me the reverse.
At some point we can dive deeper into Sandy's chaotic mind. But for now, I'll say in reverse, it's almost like you're saying true love is conditional love, which is the opposite of unconditional love. Well,
I mean,
right.
Yes. So, and that's why I said you want all those things for someone as long as they deserve it. That's the condition. Mm-hmm. If they don't deserve it, then you don't want it for them. That's the big difference between true love, and unconditional love.
I love you until you really piss me off.
You said it. Now let me ask you this: You just made a statement. How true do you think that statement is? I mean, think about it. How many people would you say that they would say that that's a true statement? Exactly. If they were answering honestly, that's what they would answer. So,
well, right. Like, how many people want to stay in a relationship if the other person is consistently pissing them off? Like,
I mean, some people do. No.
Average population out there. How many people are going to stick with it?
Yeah.
When we've talked about even like times in like divorce and why people even stay together, is it that, and I'm not saying the older generation had more unconditional love and that's why they stayed together in their marriages, but is it to where you're truly sticking with it through the thick and the thin?
Yeah. And you know what? And I'm going to get to this later. I don't believe that every relationship, let me restate that. I don't believe that every romantic relationship reaches that point of unconditional love. Mm-hmm. Obviously, because if that were that's not necessarily, I don't believe that they do.
Right. Well,
because, what I say that is you can reach a point of unconditional love and fall out of love with someone and not be with them, but you still want what's best for them.
Yeah.
So when I say that, I'm not saying that you can't have unconditional love for someone that you love. What I'm saying is I don't think that every relationship reaches that point, that maturity level. And in a minute, let's talk about transitioning through those phases of love. I don't think that every relationship reaches that point.
Well, I think from my perspective, it would be both people need to reach that stage together. Like you can't have one person in this unconditional love and the other person not.
You can.
Well, you can, but I feel like that's where you're going to find discourse and discord in a potential relationship to where you know where I'm going? Like
I think those good.
One person potentially manipulating like another, not manipulating, but just going off doing whatever they want, right? Because they're not in that unconditional love stage.
No.
But the other one is. So they let them do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So So
I hear what you're saying. And I think in those situations, obviously you can have someone who loves someone unconditionally and the other person doesn't. I think in those situations, that's where the break happens. Mm-hmm. You can still love someone, but understand that they're not at the same point or same place as you are. Or maybe they still love you, but they're just doing things that don't suit who you are at the time. Remember, we talked about how people mature at different levels at different times. We talked about how relationships grow and mature at different times. So you can be in that situation. So let's talk about transitioning from one point to the other. You talked about puppy love, and it's funny you said puppy love because when you were in high school or late elementary school and you like somebody, that's what they call that stuff, puppy love. But when you first find your someone, right?
It just makes me think of like the stars in the eyes. Like, when I look at you, it's like, oh, that's puppy love.
That happens to a lot of people, don't it? No. But listen, exactly. So when you first get involved with somebody and you have those feelings and, it's that honeymoon phase where, that person can do no wrong. You can call that puppy love. You can call it doggy love. You can call it whatever you want to call it, the beginning phases of lust or whatever. But eventually, as time goes on and you become more involved with that person and you get to know them more, that has the capability to transition to a much deeper love, right? Mm-hmm. And that deep love can turn to true love. But then as time goes on, the more you're with each other, the more opportunity for that love to mature.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what does it mean for love to actually mature? Just like you grow individually in a relationship, when two people work together, that love can mature to something much more deeper than you ever thought it could be. That's when you begin to understand and accept truly your partner, all their flaws and all those things. Mm-hmm. And in the right circumstances with the right people, you develop a sense of unconditional love for that individual because regardless of what it is that they say or do, you ultimately love them. In addition, you want nothing but the best for them. And you're at that point where you have evolved to a point in the relationship where there are no conditions on the love that you provide to that individual. Now, that takes time. And again, when I say unconditional, unconditional is not necessarily a feeling. It's a behavior. It's how you go about being in that relationship, how you go about treating, how you go about accepting, how you go about providing support for that other individual.
Yeah, so for me, I think of, somebody having a bad day and coming home, snapping at the other one, right?
Yep.
And rather than that person, and I guess that's what I think mostly of, is not taking somebody else's whatever situation or behavior personally,
Yep.
right? So they come home, they snap, I think a lot of people would have the reaction of just kind of snapping back. Like, why are you taking it out on me?
I'm going to give you a better example. One of you going off base what you said, right?
Uh-huh.
So here's here's unconditional love. Someone comes home from work. Mm-hmm. They snap at the other individual. That other individual had planned on making dinner for them and all this, and they still go about doing all that stuff, although that person has come home and
Yeah.
without their partner doing anything, they're snapping at them and treating them less than they should. But that other person unconditionally loves this person and continues to go about what they feel they need to do to show love and support for that individual. Right.
So to me, it's like, right, understanding that, okay, maybe he's having a bad day.
Yep. And even if he is, or even, and sometimes some people, it's not even asking that question. Some people are like, you know what? Whatever he's going through. I need to do what I need to do to be me.
Exactly.
So.
And not in a mean way, right? Like, not like you're taking it out on them. Like, okay, I'm going to give them the silent treatment now, even though I'm still making dinner.
Yeah. Maybe you ain't got much to say. You focus on making dinner.
I mean, like, right. Like, you could still be quiet because you know that they're going through something and you're like, I'm just going to give them their space, but not purposely give them the silent treatment.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and I've already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because you know what? It's part of the flow of this episode. Is it possible to love someone in a romantic sense unconditionally, without conditions?
Depends on how many bottles of tequila he's brought me home in the last 30
I don't
days.
think that that's unconditional love.
No, I think it is possible. People who say that they have it very early on in their relationship, I would question that.
They're lying.
Like, they think it's there, but it's more that true love sense where it is conditional. Like, that person just hasn't done anything upsetting enough to take them there.
100%. And you know what? So you said it. That person hasn't done something upsetting enough to actually take them there. Unconditional love does not occur naturally.
No.
It takes time. And, we talked about time, commitment, understanding, all of those things. It doesn't occur naturally. And you have to be at a point, not just within your relationship, but within yourself, where you are very mature with who you are, what you accept, and how you love. And of course, you can have unconditional love.
And I would say unconditional love doesn't mean that you can't argue.
Oh yeah, no. That's not. I mean, arguing comes
right?
with it's part of the package.
Right?
It's part of the package.
It's just, I feel like it's almost like how you leave that argument. Is it to where you're like, that's it?
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
He's always pissing me off.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Or is it just like, whatever, this is not a good time to talk about this. We're just not going to come to a resolution. Let's just get back to it.
Yeah. So,
like, you know what I mean? Like, just how you like leave even arguments, I think is a big difference.
Yeah. So of course you can love someone in a romantic sense unconditionally. It takes time to develop. Mm-hmm. It's not something that, you just walk in and say, hey, this is it. It's love in one of its maturest forms. And again, you can love someone unconditionally from a romantic perspective and still then later on decide that it's not a good idea for you guys to be romantically involved anymore and still love that person unconditionally. Because again, unconditional love from my perspective is not a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a behavior. Mm-hmm. And we all know feelings can change. You know, they say you fall in love. And you know what I say? If you fall in love, you can fall out. You know what I mean? If you're not committing to the commitment every day, I'm trying to think. I think that's the way you phrased it. Committing to commit daily. I think that's what it was.
I think it was. Yeah. But no, to your point, what's the other saying? There's a thin line between love and hate.
There she goes. There's the darkness. Why you got to hate on somebody?
I don't know.
He said there's a thin line between love and hate. Listen, there's a thin line between love and hate when you're in that puppy dog stage, or that puppy love stage, or even in those first stages. But when you're truly in love and your love starts to mature, that line is not so thin.
No, it gets a little thicker.
I mean, I think it depends on
skin.
I think it depends on who you are. Some people out there just snap at the drop of a hat.
Thank goodness it's not us.
Well, yeah. Well, listen. So another conversation about love. Not that we're going to get into another one. I think this might be the last one. So let's wrap this up. We have talked about how love comes in many shapes and sizes. Everyone loves differently, but it's clear that when you talk about true love and unconditional love, both have significant aspect in our lives. And I think sometimes people look at them at two distinct things. But I think one of the things that we should all remember is that you can view them as mutually exclusive, but remember that they can enrich and complement each other in many different ways, particularly as your love begins to mature. That being said, you know what time it is. No, it's not about having swag. It is time for my realization of the week. And I know you're wondering, what could he have possibly realized this week? Gonna answer.
Is it the same as how Sandy's feeling?
Nope. It's never a one. So it's never a one. That's what I got to do. I got to start making the realizations of the week a one-word response. This week, I realized that motivation without discipline would only get you so far. When you think about it, motivation is temporary. You know, people say, "Oh, I feel motivated today," and it's great to be motivated. But if you don't have the discipline to push to the finish line, you're never going to get very far. So just remember that. Motivation without discipline will only get you so far. Be disciplined, people. All right.
Maybe that should have been my how is Sandy feeling?
Unmotivated, yes. With that last statement from Sandy, that is going to conclude this week's episode. We'd like to thank you for listening. Please be sure to follow and leave feedback on your favorite podcasting app. And until the next conversation, be good.
That's it for this week's episode of the Lunch with Sandy podcast. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback and comments on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Lunch with Sandy. And be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate and review us. Thanks again for listening to the Lunch with Sandy podcast.